Welcome to the My Messy Grief podcast. I'm Cindy Schuffelbarger, a bereaved mom and the founder of P23 Retreat, where we create space for parents to grieve. In each episode, I'll chat with a guest to learn about outlets for our grief in everyday life. By processing grief in healthy ways, we can learn to find joy again while still honoring and remembering our beloved. I'm so glad you're here, and I invite you to be fully present and just rest as you listen. You might laugh, you might cry, you might be inspired. Whatever emerges, you have permission to be curious, to learn, and to explore. So let's get started with today's guest. Well, hello, and welcome to episode 5 of the My Messy Grief podcast. And we have today joining us Vicki Williams. She is a wife, a mom, a grandmom. She is a woman of faith and an encourager. I just can't wait for you to get to hear some of what she's going to share today. She, this dates us a little bit, but she has 30 plus years as a fitness instructor. She's also an occupational therapist, and she loves culinary expenses, scrapbook expenses. Did I say expenses? She doesn't like culinary expenses. She likes culinary experiences of all varieties. She loves exercise and scrapbooking. And, you know, we have a past of crossing paths at a scrapbooking event. Gosh, I am getting tongue-tied today. But we are so glad that you are here. And what's most important for you to know about Vicki is that she has a passion for people. To know Vicki is to love her. She is just such a delight and encourager. And I've seen her be the life of the party before too. So I don't know if that's always the case, but she just has a sweet, sweet, joyful spirit. So welcome, Vicki. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know how you came to be a fitness instructor.
So my fitness journey, I've always been an athlete. I was a student athlete. I went to college on a track scholarship. And I always loved movement, everything about movement. And I also have a little bit of a competitive streak, as you already know.
Yes, I love that about you.
So I like to make anything into a competition in a fun and healthy way, but anything can become a competition. So when I was a freshman in college and going through occupational therapy school, we were only limited in how many jobs we would, or the opportunities for jobs we could have, because you weren't allowed to work during clinicals. You could only work way before school or on the weekends. So I got a job as a coach on the wellness floor at the YMCA in Washington, D.C., while I was at Howard University. And so after a year, they offered me an offsite opportunity where they would send YMCA employees to offsite gyms or corporate fitness centers, and we would work there. So I was working at Intelsat, which is a corporate fitness center for them. And we clicked, and they liked me so much that they offered to buy out my contract from the YMCA. And so I became a full-time fitness instructor just for them. And then I continued to do it as we moved around. You know, we were military, so we were moving from different bases in different states. And if I could, I would pick up a job, you know, on the side and teach some fitness in addition to doing occupational therapy. And now I'm working for the YMCA here in Atlee, so it's like full circle.
Oh, I love that. And I keep saying I'm going to come to one of your classes, but you like to offer those early, like 5 a.m. or 5:30, and I've yet to make it. I promise.
But you're going to come to a PM one.
I am. Oh, yes. I have to look at your schedule and see when you're. That means I'm going to have to join the Y again. But I've been saying
You can come as my guest. You can always come as my guest.
Okay, I'll come visit your class.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that. Well, we know that moving and processing grief can be closely linked. And so, how can physical movement help us process or manage intense emotions?
So first of all, our intense emotions that we have usually when we're going through grief or just feeling really sad is that we're stressed.
Mm.
And one of the best forms of stress relief is exercise. And it doesn't matter if it's a mild exercise or sometimes we like a really aggressive exercise to help us burn off that stress, but it's such a good stress reliever. And it can help us, you know, become in connection, better connection with our emotions and our feelings and give us an outlet for releasing that stress that we can't always do verbally when we're just in a different place where we're just really sad.
Right. Yeah. Great. Um, and we find that you talked about the stress response, that grief does trigger that stress response in our body. And that might look like
Mhm,
tension, it might be fatigue, it might be disruptive sleep, even physical pain. So,
mhm.
what are some gentle activities that can help regulate the nervous system and reduce that stress response and that cortisol release?
So my first response is always just sitting in your chair, because a
Mm,
lot of times when we're stressed or feeling sad, we're wanting to be by ourselves, wanting to be comforted, wanting to be cozy. So you can just literally start in your chair. And
mm,
I was trying to think of the name of the program, but it's called Chair One Fitness. I couldn't think
mm,
of it before, but it has an amazing chair um, variety of classes that you can do literally sitting in your chair. And the music is great. The instructors are always very highly motivating. And you can literally sit in your chair and get those good endorphins going by
mm.
moving your body. And that's the
I-
first one because we're sitting.
right. I love that because
Yeah.
sometimes it just feels overwhelming to have to get up.
And go somewhere. But you can do
Right.
that in the comfort of your own home with your phone or your computer and do a Chair One class right on YouTube. And
Oh,
then my second one is always walking because it's the best form of exercise. It's low intensity, it's good on your joints, good for your body, and walking, just getting out and walking.
we talked, so we didn't tell our guests, this is actually our second try of recording this episode. We had some technical difficulties, but we talked a lot about the benefits of walking and being outside when we
Mhm.
chatted before. Can you share a little bit about that and how that was a powerful experience when you were grieving the loss of your mom?
Yeah, and it's funny because we both talked about and had the similar experiences of the things that we find are beauty in just nature. Just
Mm,
being one with God,
right.
looking at his creation and just realizing he made all of this, and then we can just breathe it in. Breathing is so important. That's
Mm,
the other thing because the next gentle one I was gonna say was yoga, but not everybody's a yogi. I'm not good at sitting still or being still, but I'm good at moving. But
mm,
like being out there and just breathing, I will also work on my deep breathing exercises, like breathing in, like what we call square breathing. Breathing
mm,
in, hold your breath, breathe it out, hold your breath, and all of that you can do while just observing nature, and then just getting your mind free.
mm,
You're not, stuck on the things that were the worrying thoughts that keep going on loop in your mind. When you're out there in the nature and just breathing and just taking it all in and letting your mind just absorb the beauty, is an easy way to kind of just distract yourself from the worrying thoughts that are stuck on loop sometimes.
mm. Yeah, so this morning I actually went outside for my walk. I have to take my dog out for a walk every morning, but we live next to an open field. And as I was walking, there's a fence back there. And I was thinking last summer there were a bunch of yellow finches out there. And I was like, I
Oh,
wonder when they come back. Well, as I walk up, there's like six bluebirds back there. There were male and
oh.
females on the same fence. So then my thoughts start wandering. I wonder where their nest is, and I wonder like what their rhythm and cycle is, and all of
Mhm.
that. And so all of a sudden, I wasn't thinking about the worries of the of the
Exactly.
day. I was consumed by curiosity about
Mhm.
the birds that were back there and the beauty of them. So yeah, again, it doesn't take much for my mind to go down a rabbit trail, but it's positive when I'm
But I was gonna say,
outside.
but it's good. But it's a good
Right.
thing.
It's a good thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, so okay, so you mentioned yoga. That could look like stretching, the deep breathing exercise. Anything else you want to add for that?
Um, I also would just say any kind of fitness that takes you out with someone else,
Oh, love that.
because it could be anything. It doesn't even have to be a class. It just could be anything that gets you involved with someone else. Because
Right.
sometimes we just need someone else to be with us.
To be present, right? And that adds
Mhm.
that level of accountability too. If we know we're
Yeah.
meeting someone somewhere,
Mhm.
we're more likely to show up.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to roll over and turn off the alarm or pull the covers over our head if there's no one there
Yeah.
that's
No
meeting us,
expectations. Yes.
right? Right. Well, good. Well, so what are some ways movement can help with emotional expression and provide a nonverbal outlet for our grief?
And so we talked about that a little bit, saying that sometimes we have parts of our grief that we can't even express. Like it's
Right.
hard for us to capture it verbally and just give it out. But we also know that the things that we do can help us, express those emotions that we can't always tap into. I always joke around about a heavy bag, boxing with a heavy bag,
Mhm.
because you can punch that bag and kick that bag and get rid of so much emotion and stress that you can't really verbalize, but
Mm.
you can really just go to town, not
Right.
hurting anybody, not hurting yourself, hopefully, um, and just release that pent up energy, anxiety, stress, whatever's going on. And then I was telling you earlier that I teach a class called Pound, which
Mm,
is a class that's just fun rocking out music, and you're using drumsticks, and so you're sneaking in all these squats and lunges, and you don't even realize it because you're just having so much fun rocking out. But the energy of just pounding, and that's why the class is called Pound, pounding on the mat, pounding on the floor, and just the explosive energy you get with it and the joy that comes with seeing other people rocking out and you're singing together, and it's just kind of like all in unison. Everybody's rocking
mm,
out together. And just the way you can just release that energy that you have that you might not be able to express verbally. Because when you're
yeah.
finished, you're feeling so good.
Right. So, okay. So I will share that I tried that pound class. I'm not terribly coordinated, but it was super fun.
Mhm.
And we talked a little last time about this connection that you can have when you're in a group of people. Sometimes we don't want to be known as the grieving mom or the grieving daughter, who, whatever our grief is. And
Mhm.
so going to the gym or taking a class is a great way to kind of blend in, if you will. And we're all there for the same reason. And so we
Mhm.
can form this connectedness.
Yeah, and I was telling you when I was grieving my mom, the gym kept saying, "Take off as much time as you need," and I was trying to explain to them without having the right words at that point in time to express my grief or how I was dealing with my grief, to say being right here with my people was the best way for me. I
Mm,
didn't have to talk about it. I didn't have to, accept all the condolences, which were lovely, but
right.
sometimes it just triggers something in me. Like even now, like it's like when I say accepting condolences, it makes me want to just bust out crying. But like sometimes you just need to be in a different space. You know what I mean? And not be that, you know, the grieving person, if you will, in the room. But
Right.
that's the lovely thing about group fitness is I was able to be in there with all my people. I'm watching them. I'm trying to make sure they're safe. I'm trying to make sure they're having fun. I'm trying to make sure their intensity's up or somebody's intensity's down. So my mind is like focused on the whole group, including myself, because I
Mm,
have to stay safe and I have to make sure I can give them all the options and do all the things at the same time. And so it's like we're all in there for the same reason. We can all share in that joy, bringing up all those good emotions that our brains give us, when we're exercising and all that good blood flow to our brain, the creativity, all the things that come out of that without having to talk to just even the person next to you.
right.
Like you were just all in there together.
You're all in there together. I love that.
Mhm.
Beautiful. So, we know that also, and we've touched on this a little bit, but we know that grief can sometimes produce this sense of numbness. And
Mhm.
so, can you talk a little bit about the role of movement in helping us reconnect with our bodies? And I'm assume that you do a little bit of this in your occupational therapy world as well,
Mhm.
helping us use movement to reconnect with our, maybe it's grounding or some other being present physically.
Yeah. And that's when the breathing comes in too. And I
Mm,
always talk about that in all my classes, even our high intensity classes. If you just sit still sometimes and just breathe, and start focusing on body parts. And I do that especially when I was grieving, but also sometimes now when I'm stressed about certain things, whatever's going on in my life, I will start to breathe and then just focus on my heart. I always start there because then when I
ah,
start focusing on my heart, I start to try to calm down and try to really find my heartbeat because you can hear it, you can feel it when you're really in tune to it. So if I'm breathing, because it's not often that I'm still. So that's a time when I make myself be still and be in the moment, find my heartbeat. And then when I start thinking about my heartbeat, it starts making me reach out and think about, and it turns into a prayer usually because I start thinking
ah,
about people that are on my heart and
mm,
thinking about them. And oftentimes, especially when it comes to like exercise and movement, when you're not moving, you tend to not think about yourself as much. And oftentimes, if we're thinking about other people or focusing on other people and bringing that out away from ourselves, it really can be healing as well. Because
I love
sometimes we
that.
do need to focus on ourselves, but sometimes if we take ourselves away from ourselves and think about other people and how we either struggles are going through or just how blessed we are to have them in our lives, we can really start to, move away from just ourselves.
Right.
And so breathing, focusing on your heart, then just thinking about body parts, like what's going on with your legs. Are you feeling sore today? Are they feeling good today? Can you go for a walk today? What can you do with your legs?
Mm,
How are your arms and hands working? And being in tune with those. Can you help someone else? Can you do something else? Can you lift something heavy?
I love that.
I always think about it in that way.
Well, and as you were just talking, I was doing some of that. I'm like, I am like wringing my hands right now under this desk, and I'm like, okay, what's that about? So, it's so powerful. Just it's so simple and yet so powerful,
Hmm.
just to pause and notice and have this awareness about what's happening with us physically when we're wrestling with emotion.
Yeah, because we don't do that.
Right.
We anything we can do to take our mind away, but that's one way to draw your mind back to
Right.
and kind of see what's going on.
I
And
love
the
that.
other thing I love about the whole connection and the exercise to grieving is just a sense of accomplishment because
Mm,
when we're grieving, sometimes everything's scattered or we're just trying to do one thing, one thing, one thing, and just doing a simple exercise routine or going for a simple walk with a goal, a small goal in mind, like I'm going to make it for 15 minutes of this exercise class from my chair in front of my computer, or I'm going to walk, you know, wherever and meet up with somebody. All of those things are just a simple sense of accomplishment that you can make. A small goal. It doesn't anything to do with weight loss or, being the strongest or anything like that, but just I'm going to make a little goal and I'm going to achieve it. And just that sense of purpose and the sense of something being completed that we might not have been able to complete before because we're so scattered with all the emotions and everything else.
right. I love that. And then the bonus is you feel better after we've accomplished
Always.
it. And the movement helps. Perhaps it moves us ahead to do the next thing in front of us,
Hmm.
and offers a little bit of clarity. I find that I can, after a good walk, I have more clarity.
Yeah. That's because you're pulling in on all those other senses and things that we don't usually tap into
Right.
because we're so busy.
Busy, right? Um, so okay, so we've touched on a lot of different things. What's your advice to somebody who might be they're in the midst of this darkness of grief and they might be struggling even just to get up and get moving?
Mhm. And that's where we talked about I know we talked about this before, but that's when I was like, that's when you need to phone a friend.
Mm,
But then I talked about being very careful about which friend you phone
yes, that's important.
because yeah, because knowing what mood you're in, it could just be that hour, that day, or whatever. Sometimes you need a friend that's going to just walk with you and listen and not talk. Just
Right.
listening, or we're not talking and we're just chilling. And sometimes you want that friend that's going to just talk, 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 and you can just absorb it and listen and you're still in the moment, you still feel like you're participating, but you didn't have to do all the talking and the topic wasn't yours to choose.
Mm. I love that. And that's important. That also is helping us to tune into what we're feeling and what we're needing. And so that's a powerful skill to develop as we're grieving. And that I feel like paying attention to those little things then can help us become better at verbalizing what we need.
Mhm. Yeah, because that's
So,
where it gets stuck, is in the being able to verbalize what we need.
right. And so I think movement can help in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Well, any other thoughts or things you want to share with us today about movement and grief?
I just say find your tribe and find something that's fun
Mm,
because I always say one of my favorite forms of exercise is Zumba. And you don't have to be like for any of these classes, you don't really have to be coordinated because you just have to be there with your group and have fun. Because every class you go to, you're going to see there's people that are uncoordinated or dysregulated when
sure.
they're moving. And it's okay because they're there having as much fun and doing all the things. And that's what brings everybody together. Because it would be such a boring time together exercising if everybody was the same, everybody was at the same level. Like, who would you look to for your motivation, or who would you look over to the other side and you're their motivation, you
Mm,
know? So sometimes it's not even just about us when we're grieving. You can be in that group and you can be motivating someone else because they're like, oh, I know she just is going through all this, but look, she's here and she's moving, so I can move too, and or I can do whatever. I can show up for myself. I can show up for others. So dancing is always a great form of self-expression
ah,
without having to use any words, and you can do it any way you want. And I like that whole saying of dance like no one's watching is absolutely key.
right. Well, and that you can do that alone too.
Yep.
Just put on some music in your house,
Yep.
and that might be the starting point. So I love, we
Exactly.
talked a little bit about individual activities. We've talked about group activities, and there's power and helpfulness in both of those.
In
So
both.
our message to our guests today is just to get moving and find something that's manageable, fun, and
And baby
invite somebody.
steps.
Baby steps. Invite somebody to join you as you look to have some accountability.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
well, thank you, Vicki. I am so glad that you joined us today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I have plans to be physically active this afternoon. I've been invited to go to Home Depot and help pick out some shrubs.
Okay.
And so I'm going to be wielding a shovel and digging in the dirt, which I could do a whole episode on the power of digging in the dirt,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
But I'm going to be moving my body. I might be sore tomorrow, but
But it'll be
I
worth
am
it.
right. It'll so be worth it. I'll get some sunshine, but you are always a bright light to the world.
Well,
I love
thank
that you
you.
wore your yellow today, and we are so grateful for you being here. And we just want to invite our guests to continue to follow along. So thank you, Vicki. I hope you have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of My Messy Grief. Grief is a reminder of our love for someone.
Grieving is hard work and is meant to be felt, not fixed. If you know a parent grieving the loss of a child, send them our way at p23retreat.org. Likewise, if you want to help to support our ministry, drop by our website to give the gift of hope to a grieving parent. May today be filled with moments of light, even in the darkness and messiness of grief.